everything that's happened in the last few days has validated why we did what we did in November. We've learned that liberals and Democrats actually do have the ability to condemn the notion of the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. So I don't know, I guess the notion of ethnic cleansing must have a different ring when it comes out of Trump's mouth.
We decided on a candidate who then heard from his donors, from the big donors, next day and came back and said, you know, I love your endorsement, but we don't want a public Muslim endorsement.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our podcast, everybody. We've got some great guests to discuss a hot topic today. We have Mo Maraka with us, we have Amr Zahir with us, and we have Hussam Aloush, our experts on the subject matter that we're going to be discussing, which is the thrashing of the Arab and the Muslim community by several Democrats who are trying to blame us for the election of Trump by arguing that if we didn't vote for them, because we didn't vote for them, we're seeing the commentary that we're seeing, whether it's the dismantling of USAID or Trump claiming that the United States is going to take over Gaza. Ahmed, what do you think? Don't you think the Democrats should have at least earned our vote instead of blame us for voting for somebody else?
Well, actually, in my point of view, everything that's happened since Trump put out this ridiculous I mean, let's be clear about something. Trump is a racist, a con man, and he's illiterate, right? I mean, he probably has never read a book about Palestine, if he's ever read a book, period, okay? So he doesn't know what he's talking about on the substance. We know that, right? But everything that's happened in the last few days has validated why we did what we did in November. We've learned that liberals and Democrats actually do have the ability to condemn the notion of the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. They could have done it since October 2023, and now they're not doing it. In fact, one of the things we said was that they're not standing up to their own, even though they know what the right thing is to do, many of them, but they're not standing up to their own president and their own party. So I don't know. I guess the notion of ethnic cleansing must have a different ring when it comes out of Trump's mouth. So we've noticed that they can actually, I mean, I don't know if I was at a speech on Tuesday when this happened, and right after it, I turned on CNN, and Jake Tapper, who is no friend to us, was having a panel about how this was ethnic cleansing and wrong and morally wrong and so on and so forth. So, I mean, they've basically proved why we did what we did, right? You weren't paying attention to us. You weren't treating us like human beings. You were treating us like political pawns. Now we are your political pawns again because you're using it to attack Trump because, you know, you just don't like him. And so everything that we said is coming to fruition. And now we're getting bombarded again by journalists I've been interviewed by like CBS, BBC, CNN over the last few days. They're fascinated with us once again, only because we were able to beat the Democrats. And today I got a message from a journalist that said, aren't you worried about what Trump said? I said, what do you mean? He said, aren't you worried that he can embolden people to act out? I said, what do you mean? You mean like commit violence against Arabs and Muslims in America? They said, yeah. I said, wait a second. On October 10th, 2023, Biden said he saw beheaded babies when he didn't. And 4 days later, a little boy was stabbed 26 times in Chicago to death by his landlord, who said that Palestinians don't deserve to live. And Biden kept up this rhetoric. And then three Palestinian young men were shot in Vermont. And then a couple months before the election, a Yemeni girl was stabbed here in Detroit. Why didn't you say anything when Biden was emboldening all this stuff?
And under a Democratic Party, not considered a hate crime. It wasn't registered, never filed, never investigated as a hate crime because, by the way, Arabs, we don't fall under any category. Mo, what do you think? Why is it that this message cannot resonate with the liberals? Why is it that they can't seem to get the message that it's about earning our vote, recognizing us?
Honestly, I because we've never delivered the message. I think the greatest thing that happened this year was that they lost Dearborn. They had taken us for granted for so long. Since the second Bush administration, Muslim Americans and Arab Americans have been a very reliable voting bloc. And I'm a data scientist. I look at vote history. I work with the Democratic Party. We've been one of the most, I think second to Black women, one of the most reliable voting blocs. And we've never had any demands in return for that. We really, I think some of the blame is on them, certainly. Some of the blame has got to lie with us because we've never really mobilized and said, for our vote, this is the things that we are demanding. We want to be part of the Democratic Party. We want to be part of the party, that decides the platform. We want to decide on who is the DNC chair. We haven't really levied any demands in return for our vote. And I think they've been really surprised that one, we could mobilize. Two, that we were actually going to exact a price, and we did. We did exact a price. Dearborn, they can keep going back to Dearborn. But it's really funny to me. I think the funniest part about the whole thing is uh, we didn't matter during the campaign. I think, one of the president's campaign managers said nobody cares about Gaza. I mean, she used much more foul language, which I won't repeat on a Muslim show, but she said, nobody gives a, beep on about Gaza. Um, and we weren't important. And, Biden said they're going to come around, they'll forget by November. We didn't forget it by November. Now we're really important because we cost them the election. But it wasn't just, the truth is, it wasn't just Muslims. She lost 7 out of 7 states.
Yeah.
Maybe she would have won Michigan. Even if let's assume that the 55,000 Arab, residents in Dearborn all voted, and they all voted against her, which didn't actually happen. But let's assume for a second they did. She lost Michigan by 80,000 votes, but she also lost Arizona and Nevada and Georgia and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, where in Pennsylvania up to 24% of African American males voted again. You can't, as a Democratic, uh, candidate, lose 24% of African American males to win an election. You can't do that. It's just not a thing.
Hussam, my brother from California, you have Kamala's from your state. You was your senator. Why is it? What does it seem like? I mean, you hear what Ahmed, you hear what Mo is saying. Why does it seem like our message regarding why we didn't vote for the Democrats? It's not, we couldn't just sit there quietly. We couldn't sit there just accept. Obviously, for me, there was issues on Syria as well as Gaza. For so many people, it was also about the economy. For African Americans, it was a lot about social justice, which they were supposed to stand for. So, what was it? What's the disconnect? What's that dissonance that's going on over there?
Couple of things, and I think both Amr and Mo kind of touched upon it. One is the first one is we have to differentiate when we talk about the Democratic Party. It is not just one, united front with everybody agreeing on everything. The Democratic Party itself is divided. There's the establishment. I mean, just to oversimplify, there's the establishment, and then there's the rank and file. And even within the rank and file, you're dealing with progressives, you're dealing with labor, you're dealing with people focused on immigration, you're dealing with people pushing the LGBTQ agenda. You have people, you have everybody. The establishment has allied itself or aligned itself on issues with the Zionists purely. So they have all the reasons to distract and deflect from the failures. The fact is, the party had a major failure in 2024, lost the White House, lost Congress, lost an election with 6 million less voters than in 2020. 6 million, 6.1 million people, less people voted for Harris than they voted for Biden. So they have to blame somebody, and they will never take ownership for that mistake. They will never come and say, we screwed up. We lost touch with people. We disrespected people, including Muslims and everyone on the list that Mo mentioned. So, but I hope we don't fall for that also. As Muslim voters, as activists, we don't deal with the party as one thing. Otherwise, that would be the biggest gift we can give to the white supremacists, to the Zionists. If we feel like, we have no place and no ability to make a difference in either of the parties. So that is one. The second thing is, the truth is, we can demand. I know Mo was saying we haven't made demands. Who cares about our demands? The question is, how much can we cause of pain? We bark. I've heard that being said by one of the senior advisors to one of the leading candidates in our area. Said, it is known now within that when it comes to the Muslim community, it's a community that barks pretty loud. We bark very loudly. on social media, in protest on the street, which is all needed, but we don't bite, right? We haven't been able to cause people to lose their election in a direct way. And I have no doubt Muslims, Arabs, progressives, and young people had a major impact on this past presidential election, as the recent poll by IMAU showed. 29% of people who did not vote for Harris but voted for Biden 4 years ago, 29% of those people said the number one reason was Gaza, the genocide.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so
Building on that point that Hassam's saying, that now that we have bark, how do we get bite, Mo? How do we rip into this? And let's take credit. You know what? You're right. You didn't win because you didn't respect us. What's our next steps?
Well, I mean, we've already started to take next steps. One, Hassam's absolutely right. I think you never stop engaging. We can't, you know, sit aside and sit out and not and take that path. That path goes nowhere because the electoral game, the political game in America continues, whether we're uh, taking part of that or not. We can sit out and sit on the sidelines. Doesn't mean that the game stops, and doesn't mean that our opponents and people who want to see us marginalized and sidelined in this country stop engaging. So we have to continue engaging. To that effect, we, you know, and the folks from Amin and some folks from Michigan were part of an effort. We brought, and Hassam was part of a national effort. We brought the DNCs. You know, lately they've had a election. They just elected their new chair, Ken Martin, who's been the statewide party director. He's been the Democratic state director in Minnesota. But the Muslim community leaders, we arranged a meeting, and we interviewed all of the candidates, and we decided on a candidate. Unfortunately, I think the Democratic Party hasn't really learned their lesson, because we decided on a candidate who then heard from his donors, from the big donors, next day, and came back and said, you know, I love your endorsement, but we don't want a public Muslim endorsement. Uh, and to that effect, we said, it's okay. You don't want an endorsement? We're going to go with Ken. We're going to support the guy who has, it was a close race, and we're going to support the guy who has a track record. You know, Ken Martin is from Minnesota. He was the first person that urged Keith Ellison, the first Muslim elected to office. He urged Keith, recruited Keith, and insisted that Keith run for congressional race. He supported Ilhan when donors wanted him to primary Ilhan. He declined to do that. He's had a good track record with us. And the fact that we actually participated has led all the DNC, including Ken Martin, who's not a chair, but during the they had these debates. The question came up by somebody from California, from Hassam's state, Joe Salas, who's a Muslim. He's a Latino Muslim. He's a member of the DNC. He said, how come there's no Muslim caucus? So now there is going to be a formal Muslim caucus for the first time in a political party in the history of the United States.
And see, that's it's a great first step. And I mean, one thing, caucus is power, right? You're there now. You got elected to a school board. How is it like? I mean, now that we're seeing on a national level, mashallah, we are seeing more Muslims of all stripes. You know, whether they're conservative, whether they're liberal, whether they're Democrat, whether they're getting into positions of elected authority and making a difference. You know, how do we keep that bite going? How do we keep that momentum going?
Well, I think we have to understand that we had to do what we did in November, right? This was a problem caused by the Democrats, not by us. We had a historic opportunity in front of us, and we had to take advantage of it. The death of the children of Gaza had to mean something. And when I say they created this situation, let's think back for a second, right? We were very anti-Biden. Biden dropped out of the race because of Gaza. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. Then when Harris came, we all sort of collectively took a breath. We took a step back. We said, you know, let's see what happens. And she immediately came to Detroit and shouted down protesters. Then she said she's not going to consider an arms embargo against Israel. Then there was a debacle at the DNC where they wouldn't even let a vetted, sterile, vanilla speech about Palestine from a Palestinian happen. And then they sent Clinton to Michigan in the last week of the election to tell all Palestinians that everything that was happening there was our fault. And then they sent the Cheneys here who killed 1 million Iraqis based on a lie. Okay? So they had every chance. And by the way, our price was low, really. And Richie Torres.
Yeah.
By the way, our price was low. All we wanted to hear was, I will consider an arms embargo against Israel, and the whole community would have been mobilized against her. By the way, that's a low price. That would have made me fight with people in my community like, you aren't asking for enough, okay? But that would have been enough. But they didn't even do that. So no way could we with a straight face have supported them. And by the way, we have to be clear that we might have to do it again, because like Mo said, maybe they're not getting the message. All I've heard from the Democratic Party so far is that we lost because, the Democrats think they lost because of LGBTQ issues and trans bathrooms, which means they think that they weren't centrist enough, right? This is what they think. They think they weren't centrist enough. Instead, the truth is they weren't progressive enough. They lost thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of progressives. I remember watching a CNN story back in like April of last year where they were interviewing a Latina voter from Arizona who lives on the border, and they were talking to her about immigration, and she was trashing Trump's immigration policies and talking about how dangerous he is. And so the reporter said to her, "You're going to vote for Biden, right?" And she said, "Nope." And they asked her why, and she said, "Gaza." So anyone who thinks that this was an issue that only drove Arab American and Muslim American voters is highly mistaken. And so we might have to do this again. We have to make sure that they get the message, right? If we just say, well, we did it this one time, but now we'll come back to you and everything's okay, then it didn't mean anything. Right.
I mean,
this was about solidifying our political power for a generation or more. And so we have to cash in those chips. And that means if we have to do it again, then we'll do it again. But yes, we do want to be engaged. We know we have to meet with the Democratic Party. We know we don't have any real place in the Republican Party, especially the Republican Party of Trump. So we know that it's going to be with the Democratic Party, but we have to come with confidence and come with the power that we built for ourselves, and tell them, look, if you want this to happen again, it can, but let's have a conversation.
But Hussam, now you network across the United States. Obviously, you deal with guys. I mean, Ahmed is kind of pushing on the progressive side. I could tell you I'm a conservative, but I'm a Democrat. Didn't vote for Biden because of Gaza, because of a lot of the issues where I felt like they just had no message. They had not. It was just basically about, look what we maybe possibly do for everybody all the time, which really doesn't. There's no meat to that message. What do you think? How do we network the various sectors in the Muslim community? How are you finding it mobilizing so that when we do in the next election, that the message keeps getting hammered again and again and again, that you can't ignore us?
I mean, first, we have to admit our community is not monolithic, right? We're a diverse community, and we might disagree, and it's healthy to disagree on a lot of issues. So we're not going to have to lose trust of each other and our unity as much as we can because of that difference that we might have. But certainly a lot of issues and values unite us. I mean, honestly, if a genocide in Gaza, stopping a genocide in Gaza could not unite us, then there's a problem. And I think it did unite the community, including people, myself as a Syrian American, including yourself, Dr. Abdul Majid, with the issue of Syria. I think the common thread we have here, the common thread is we were disrespected by both parties. We were disrespected by both. And we need to regain that respect, even if we end up being split, even if 20, 30% of the Muslim community chooses to be voting Republican. That's okay. But don't do this as a reaction to being rejected by the Democrats or because we're being used as a token by either of the parties. We need to build enough political power, which we don't have. I can tell you, as angry as the Muslim community was, at both parties, but specifically at Harris, we didn't channel that into building power. We channeled that into anger, and people didn't vote. If you do the studies and you talk to people, more people didn't vote than any other election in recent history within the Muslim community. So yes, there were some protest votes, a lot of it for the Green Party, for Stein, for Dr. West. But the reality is, we have 2 years now to be practical instead of dwelling on the past. We have 2 years, a little bit less than that, obviously, as we prepare for the midterm election, where we can get few people elected who can send the message. I mean, honestly, what is even more important than that is defeating some people, finding the viable and vulnerable races where we have Islamophobes, where we have Zionists in a vulnerable seat, get together, build the coalitions, raise the money. So we're focused. We're not trying to change all the 435 seats in Congress, in the House. Focus on those 10, 20 where we can make actually a difference. Get few people elected. Maybe we can convince Dr. Ahmed Ghanim to run again. Convince others in different states. Make sure that they're running in races where actually they have a good chance. And let's win. That's when we'll get the attention. Then our issues, which are diverse, they're not only Gaza, they're Palestine, they're freedom, but I think we can all be united on countering Islamophobia, on promoting human rights, democracy in the Middle East. So far, U.S. foreign policy has been deliberately undermining democracy in the Middle East, deliberately supporting the occupation, deliberately.
So, Hussam, in our winding minutes, is what would you do, like in the next, because 2026 in a blink of an eye is going to be right in front of us. What should we be telling our community right now? What in how to, step one on how to engage, step two, how to make sure that the Democratic leadership, that party understands that, hey, look, you just cannot mistreat us. And step three is actually to tell the Republicans that, look, Trump's only going to be there for another 4 years, and that entire empire is going to disappear because he has no inheritor. There is no Trump Jr. There's nobody in the wings. There's going to be a wide open party for us to step into. What are the 3 steps you'd say in these winding minutes as we reach to the rest of our guests?
Quick 3 things. One is ensure that those who represent us or represent our views with the Democratic Party or Republican Party actually report to the Muslim community, that they are the representative of our issues with the party rather than the representatives of the Democratic or Republican Party within our community. That is very important. Number 2, encourage people to join organizations that organize politically, right? We need to be able to mobilize people very quickly. Thirdly, raise enough money, a lot of money for the various C4s and the PACs so we can leverage the votes, leverage the allies, and leverage the money.
Amir?
Well, I think we have to, for now, do what we've been doing, which is get out there, educate our community, and keep pushing, right? I mean, strike while the iron's hot. Look, there's a reason that the media and everybody is still obsessed with us 3 months after the election. And that's because we brought down a president and we brought down a party. So let's not take that for granted. Let's understand that we did that. And it's okay that we're diverse, by the way. I mean, the Black community is very diverse too. They have very differing sort of social viewpoints in their community. Some are conservative, some are liberal. At the end of the day, though, they find that their political power is most when they unite most with one party, and that party has decided to talk to them and deal with them and give them leadership positions and so on and so forth. And that party is good on their main issue, right? Racial justice, Black Lives Matter. That's the one issue that's a red line for them. There's a lot of Black voters who vote for the Democratic Party no matter what, but are very against, let's say, LGBTQ issues or whatever. So we have to have that sort of viewpoint as well, that our power lies when we're mostly consolidated with one party, and keep pushing in that direction. But we do have to be very aware, again, and I say this again, that we might have to do this again. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but we might have to do it again. It is incumbent for us to stay engaged, as Mo said, and as Hussam said, they're both exactly right about that. But we have to stay principled in this engagement, and we cannot give up this massive. I'm not sure everyone in our community understands, in my point of view, the massive political power we gained after this last election. Okay. And the Democrats don't get it yet either. And so I think they purposely want to continue this narrative that, it's funny because they want to pretend like it had nothing to do with us. While, of course, on social media, every single one of their operatives is blaming us. I mean, either you're blaming us and we did do it, or, it had nothing to do with it. You can't have it both ways, right? They're blaming us and cursing us and saying, Trump is going to deport you and all this kind of stuff. So let them get that out of their system. That's okay. They're hurt. They'll get over it. If they're smart, they'll get over it soon enough and realize that they have to talk to us. But there is so much power in saying no. And we have to continue to be willing to say no until the Democrats say yes.
Hey, Mo, just as you wrap it up for us, what do you say?
Well, as a campaign operative, I'll say three things. One, all politics is local. So this year has been a great year. We have 40 Muslims and Arabs running for office in Illinois, an additional 15 to 20 in Michigan. There are people running for office in New Jersey and in Virginia. So there's a ton of us running for local office. So if you have the desire, if you have what it takes and have the time, run for office. Run for a local office. I think Amr did a great job. Amr is running for school board. He thinks that's a great place to start. That might not be the end of the road. Maybe he'll decide in a year that that's it for him. But at least he's putting his foot down and saying, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to run for office. I'm going to prioritize our community. That's number one. Number two, there's nothing more important than voting, but we, and just like the Latino community, come from communities where voting is not inherent to a lot of our communities. A lot of our community is immigrants and second generation. Voting is not prioritized. This was the same with Latino Americans. What changed and made Arizona and Nevada states that are in play is mail-in voting. If you're a Muslim American, if you're an American, if you're a group that works with voters, get everybody you know to apply for a mail-in ballot. Mail-in ballots are an accepted form of voting in almost every state in this country. And you can do it. And you get a ballot, the state notifies you when there's an election, whether it's local, whether it's congressional, whether it's presidential, and they notify you, a couple of weeks out, hey, it's time to send your ballot. Also for groups like Amin, like Care Action, it's easy for them to track who sent in the ballot and who did it. And so it's really, really important for voters, if you're a Muslim voter, Arab voter, for you to vote, go get your mail-in ballot. And if you are working on the community, get everybody you know sign up to vote by mail. And then finally, and Sam, touched on this, but there is no movement, political or otherwise, that didn't start by organizing the Dulmal. I'll say this, the word is Dulmal in Arabic, and it means those who are affluent, who are donors. We need our donors, but we don't organize our donors. We just go to them when it's an election, 30 days out, 60 days out, 90 days out. We want money for this party. We want money for this candidate. We need, how much can you give us? What's the maximum you give us? What actually has to happen is we have to organize donors. We have to show them that there's progress and explain to them the value of investing. This is an investment for them. This is an investment for donors in California, investment for donors around the country. I raise money for a living. Most of the money right now is coming from three places. It's coming from New York, California, by far the most. Texas and New York are second and third. But there are a lot of affluent Muslims, younger Muslims. We need to go out and say, oh, I know you get asked. Let's pull you in, just like Hassan said, to a group, to an organization, to a collective, and explain to them how this benefits the community and how it benefits them and how it protects them when it's time and they get attacked, and then organize them. And once we have that, we have all the three, all the three aspects that we need to be engaged: candidates, voters, and donors.
My producer is sending me some signals here that, to kind of wrap things up. So, Hussam, last words, 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep in mind, Trump is going to give us a lot of opportunities to galvanize the community. He's going to make a lot of stupid things and say a lot of stupid things. Let's keep an eye on finding ways, because I feel the community is cooler now about politics. Let's remind them that The occupation remains. The instability for Syria remains. The support for dictatorships in the Middle East continues. Our battle against Islamophobia hasn't ended. So we're there, and we're going to organize to achieve our goals, inshallah, in ways that serve our interests and our communities and our values.
Inshallah. Mo, 15, 20 seconds.
Oh, it's good. Get involved. Run for something. Igri. I'm going to use an Egyptian slang, which everybody who's an Arab understands because of all the moon. Igri am. Run for something. Do something. You don't want to run, donate. You don't want to donate, be an activist and get everybody in your circle involved. It's really important.
What do you got for us? The last 15, 20 seconds here.
Well, just to encourage people to keep talking about Palestine because it's working. Keep doing it because it's working. We are winning. We are going to win. I was just in Palestine. They tell me every day when I was there that they see what we're doing in America and it gives them strength. So we were getting our strength from them and they're getting their strength from us. So we have to keep going and keep going. One day, I promise you, all of us will be on the beaches of Gaza sharing fresh fish together. I promise you, we will all be there soon.
In the Trump Towers or no Trump Towers?
It's okay. If there's a Trump Tower there, that's fine with me too. You know, I don't care.
As long as paying taxes and rent, baby, to the Palestinian, that's all it needs to, right? So, Shabab, I really appreciate everything. I learned a lot. The one thing I loved is for the Muslim community that's listening out there, understand you can bring down a presidency legally, ethically, morally with your vote. So not voting is haram. You need to maintain your power and your authority and get involved. Work with brothers like Mo Maraqa, Amir Zahir, Hussam Alyoush, and Abdulmajid Qatranji, Ahmed Ghanem, and Amin. We're all here ready to help you. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Wa alaikum salam.